Welcome. Today we're doing a deep dive into the financial activities surrounding a former president, now back for a second term. There's been a lot more attention lately.
Yes, definitely heightened focus, particularly on potential conflicts of interest, think financial dealings with foreign entities.
Right. And we're going to look at specifically some information about a pretty significant plane offer from Qatar and also some big foreign investments that are raising questions.
Hmm.
So our goal here is really just to pull out the key facts, try and bring some clarity to what can be, well, pretty complex issues.
Absolutely. It's about understanding these engagements, things that carry real political and, ethical weight, especially since the return to office.
Okay, so let's start with maybe the flashiest example. This reported $400 million plane offer from Qatar.
Yeah, that's certainly grabbed headlines. $400 million.
It's a huge number. And some commentators, especially Democrats, have pointed to it as maybe a symbol of potential graft or undue influence.
It inevitably raises questions, doesn't it? A gift or offer of that magnitude. What's the relationship there? What's expected in return, potentially?
Exactly.
But it's also fair to say some argue it might be a bit of a distraction, that maybe focusing only on the plane misses a perhaps bigger picture.
A broader pattern, you mean?
Potentially, yes. When you look at the overall financial activities that seem to be happening now.
Which leads us nicely into this apparent expansion of business interests. Because during the first term, the line was more about separating things, focusing on domestic deals, right?
That was the stated approach, yes. A sort of nominal separation with the focus kept within the U.S.
But now, it looks different.
It really does. What's striking is the shift, or pivot's a better word, towards international ventures. We're seeing the former president, the family, openly pursuing deals globally.
Like the recent one in Qatar, for a golf club.
Precisely. That April deal is a concrete example. It signals a very noticeable change in where the business focus lies compared to before.
And the scale of this foreign money seems to be picking up pace, too. Comparing the first term to just the start of the second.
The numbers reported are quite stark. So Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, CROW, they reported about $160 million from foreign sources over the entire first term.
Okay, over 4 years.
Right. Now compare that to the period just after the re-election, say from November 2024 into the first month back in office. The figure being talked about is nearly $80 million.
Wow. That's almost half the first term total in just a few months.
Exactly. And that includes things like multi-million-dollar deals for the Presidential Library Fund.
And wasn't there a deal involving Melania Trump as well?
Yes, a reported $40 million documentary deal with Amazon. So significant sums coming in from various foreign-related sources very early in the second term.
But maybe the biggest headline grabber, financially speaking, is this crypto investment, $2 billion.
That's the figure, yes.
Okay.
A $2 billion cash injection reportedly from a firm based in Abu Dhabi.
Okay. And it went into what?
Into a stablecoin digital currency. It's run by a company called World Liberty Financial, which has links to the former president's family.
Right. Now, this is interesting because the former president wasn't always keen on crypto, was he? I remember some skepticism about Bitcoin.
That's true. There were public statements expressing reservations, calling Bitcoin a scam, I believe. So the family now being deeply involved in a major stablecoin venture backed by foreign money is, well, it's a notable development.
Can you quickly explain what a stablecoin is for anyone maybe not familiar?
Sure. So unlike Bitcoin, which fluctuates wildly, a stablecoin is a type of cryptocurrency that's designed to hold a steady value. Usually it's pegged to something like the US dollar. So one coin aims to always be worth, say, $1.
Got it. So less volatile. But a $2 billion investment in that, tied to the president's family.
Naturally attracts a lot of scrutiny, yes. Yeah. And some Democrats have specifically started calling it crypto corruption.
Okay, so that term, crypto corruption, how is that playing out politically? What's the strategy there?
Well, for the Democrats, being in the minority in both the House and touch it right now, highlighting issues like this can be a key tactic.
To energize their base.
Exactly. Energize the base, put pressure on the administration, shape the public narrative. Focusing on potential ethical lapses like crypto corruption is a way to do that when legislative options are limited.
And the response from the former president's side.
The former president himself has tended to say he doesn't know the specifics of his family's business deals. Sort of distancing himself slightly, while also making generally positive comments about crypto itself.
And his allies.
Republicans defending him often point to the family's business background, saying they were successful long before politics.
They were already rich argument.
Essentially, yes. And they also try to pivot, shifting the focus onto, say, Hunter Biden's activities, like his artwork sales, suggesting ethical questions exist on the other side, too.
Right, trying to create an equivalency.
And they contrast the family's current business boom with the former president's own history, which includes 6 bankruptcy declarations for his businesses in the past. Now, they paint a picture of soaring success.
Interesting contrast. Now, we also heard Senator Sheldon Whitehouse talking about a theory. Something about normalizing corruption.
Yes, Senator Whitehouse has articulated this idea. He calls it the authoritarian game plan, basically.
Okay.
His theory is that there's a deliberate effort to make potentially corrupt or unethical behavior seem normal, almost expected. By constantly suggesting everyone does it or pointing fingers elsewhere, it kind of lowers the bar and makes specific instances seem less shocking or unique.
So it becomes harder to hold anyone accountable if the perception is that it's widespread.
That's the core of his argument. Deflecting criticism by muddying the waters, suggesting it's just how things are.
Okay. This whole situation, particularly the crypto angle, it's even spilled over into legislation, hasn't it? The
Yeah.
Genius Act.
It has, yes. The Genius Act, that's a bill aimed at regulating stablecoins, the very type of digital currency involved in that $2 billion investment.
And it had bipartisan support, I thought. It seemed like something that might actually pass, even with all the gridlock.
It did. It was generally seen as a needed step for bringing some rules to the stablecoin market. But then, some Senate Democrats essentially put the brakes on.
Why? Directly because of the former president's family connection.
Their stated concern was precisely that the former president could potentially profit, perhaps significantly, from these digital currencies, especially if this bill passed, potentially legitimizing or facilitating the market without addressing the conflict of interest concerns first.
So they protested the bill.
They did, raising those concerns very publicly.
How did the bill's supporters react to that, the Republicans and maybe some other Democrats?
Well, the argument from the Republican side, and likely some others supporting the bill, was that this is nonpartisan legislation. It's about regulating an industry, setting up guardrails, and it shouldn't be held hostage by concerns about one individual's family business.
They're saying keep the issues separate.
Right. And there were also worries voiced, even among some Democrats, about appearing obstructionist, especially to people involved in digital finance who want regulatory clarity.
A tricky position.
Definitely. Plus, there's an argument that if any laws are being broken regarding these investments, existing laws fraud, corruption statutes should be sufficient to prosecute that, regardless of whether the Genius Act passes or not.
Senator Brian Schatz seemed to touch on that, saying the actions might already be illegal.
Yes, Senator Schatz made that point. He suggested that the focus shouldn't necessarily be on blocking new regulations like the Genius Act, because, in his view, if there's illegal activity happening with these crypto deals, it's likely illegal under current law anyway. His concern was more about not letting these issues derail necessary regulation for the whole digital currency space.
He also had some interesting comments about media coverage, didn't he?
He did. He was somewhat critical, suggesting the media sometimes focuses too much on uncovering corruption, like finding a smoking gun.
Rather than what?
Rather than highlighting what he called corruption hiding in plain sight. He pointed specifically to the former president's overseas trips, implying they might be heavily focused on business dealings, but perhaps don't get scrutinized in the same way as a specific scandal might.
So sort of looking at the systemic issues versus just the individual bombshells.
That seemed to be his point, yes. A critique of how potential ongoing conflicts are covered, or maybe undercovered.
So where does this leave things? What's the feeling among Democrats or those concerned about these conflicts?
Generally, I think they see the increased attention itself as a positive development, a win, in a sense.
Just getting it talked about more.
Yes. And Senator Whitehouse, for instance, pointed to that $400 million plane offer again, saying it really acted as a catalyst. It made people sit up and pay attention to the broader financial picture.
And looking ahead, any sense of what might happen?
Well, there's certainly hope from their perspective that if they were to regain control of, say, the House of Representatives in the next election cycle, that would open up significant avenues for oversight.
Through committees. Subpoena power.
Exactly. They often reference the January 6th committee hearings as an example of how effective congressional investigations with subpoena power can be in bringing information to light.
So the feeling is that there's more to uncover.
Very much so. Senator Whitehouse basically concluded that what we're seeing now is likely just, quote, the tip of the iceberg. The assumption is there's probably a lot more beneath the surface regarding these potential conflicts of interest.
Okay, so just to quickly recap the main points we've touched on. There's the Qatari plane offer, that huge $2 billion crypto investment linked to the family, and this wider backdrop of really expanding international business deals during the second term.
That's right. Those are the key areas generating a lot of debate and scrutiny in Washington right now. They're all interconnected in this narrative about potential conflicts and foreign financial entanglements.
And it raises some fundamental questions, doesn't it? When you think about the scale of these financial ties, crossing borders, involving governments, private firms, new technologies like crypto, it really makes you wonder, what are the potential long-term implications of all this? Not just for domestic politics, but for foreign policy and international relations too.
It's a crucial question. The potential impact is multifaceted and could be felt for a long time. Definitely something to keep watching.